We've been for the last week, just not when well, not even less than that. When Pete came out, right, and he went on the IL, we talked about some of our potential first baseman that we could have in different games, and facing a lefty tonight and trying to include McCann and also include Nito in the lineup. That's the reason where we come with the decision of him being in there, right? The bat presence. So the last few days he's been working there with Disarcina, and even today again for early work we had him there working, and that's a position that I'm going to say he's familiar with, even though he hasn't played there professionally, but he's familiar with the position. He's worked there before. He's looked good to us. So I don't think there's going to be anything compromised with him playing first from a defensive standpoint. We feel pretty good, and have the bat presence there, which is something that we need right now. We need presences in the lineup. We're facing a lefty, and then I think he's a guy that can click with other guys in there, and then we can manufacture some runs for Peterson.
What was his reaction when you came to him with the idea? Was it something that kind of caught him off guard?
No, not at all. He was very outgoing about playing there. We've been talking about it for 2 days now, and very outgoing, very easy about it, easy going. It's just, yeah, sure. He's been getting his work with Gary, and all for our evaluation, like he's looked good. So that's why we're throwing him in there. Which we feel that he's going to help us win tonight at first base and hitting third against the lefty.
Thank you.
Tim Britton, you're up next.
Hey, Louis, what's the plan with J.D. Davis this week? I know Syracuse is off today, but moving forward.
So, yeah, we want him to play 9 innings and, play some first base too, get more comfortable there playing, because he hasn't played there, I think, in 4 years. He hasn't played first base. So once he plays a string of 9 innings, we want to hear his feedback of how the feel for swinging the bat, finishing his swing, which is the most important thing right now, to see how that thing feels in his hand, and then we'll know if he's going to join us, later this week, the weekend, but we got to go through this stage in his rehab assignment where he plays the 9 innings tomorrow, and then 9 innings Wednesday, and then Thursday. The stiff neck got in the way yesterday of him playing 9 innings and us getting another feedback on how he felt. But he's felt it a little bit, he says, but it's something that when you come back, those hand injuries, sometimes there's a feel there. There's something that is not normal, even though the pain is gone. So, but we want to hear his feedback now with the string of 9-inning games that he's going to be playing after the day off, probably 3 more over there.
And then what's Alonso going to be up to this week? And can he be back on, that first day eligible?
We'll see. He's going to start swinging 2 hands probably today. That was some of the things that we talked about. And he's going to have to do some progression after that, from swinging in the cage, taking BP and high velo machine to test the swing, the pressure, some gain speed drills, and potentially he's going to have to play some rehab games too, so he can test it before he joins us. So, we'll see how the progression goes. I think the step of swinging 2 hand, it's a big step just to see how he feels after not swinging, not using that hand now for, since Tuesday. I think he hasn't swung a bat with that hand, right? Taking days off so he could see that there's nothing going on anymore. There's no soreness that's bothering him to swing. So, we'll see. Today's swinging 2 hands, I think, is big for him, but the progression is the one I just shared with you, and the thought is for him also to face some competition probably before he joins the team.
Thanks.
Your next question comes from Dave Lennon.
Hey, Louis, how did you guys come up with the idea for McCann? I think this is his first game at first base in the majors, right? I mean, had he played in the minors at all? And has he got any work with you guys as far as spring training? I don't remember if he was over there or not.
No, he probably he went there a couple times to catch throws and take some grounders and do some things. And he did say to us that he feels good there, that he can play there. And he said it in spring training. We came into the season thinking that we weren't going to use him there. Just having Dominic and having Alonso, like you just think that if something happens to one of them, like the other's going to just play first. But at this point, with all the injuries that we have and uh, and the options of guys that we want in the lineup, I think that's the main reason why he's playing first is because of his bat. And then the second reason is because we're also comfortable with him playing first base. He said to us that he's comfortable playing there. He knows how to play the position. He played third, I think, in his minor league career, one game, a couple of innings, few innings. But we've done some work with him in the last few days. Like I said earlier, Gary's worked with him, David, and he's looked good. I went out there and he looked good. He's bouncing off the back. He feels comfortable. He's picking throws and he's got a good form fielding ground ball. So for our eyes, it's just exactly what he told us. How comfortable he feels playing there. Like we feel comfortable with him playing there. So that's where the decision came from.
Thanks, Louis.
Next up is Anthony DeComo.
Hey, Luis. Any restrictions tomorrow on Jake in terms of pitch count, ups, downs, anything like that, or is he a full go?
Well, we want to see how the game goes. The game's he's gonna tell us what going through the game, going inning by inning, and then that's it. That's gonna be the feel for the decision when he's coming out. So right now we don't have any pitch count in mind. We don't have like an up down that we can talk about it or tell even Jake. It's just go ahead and pitch and do what you do. And once we get a feel from different views, I think that's when the decision is going to be made. But no pitch count or up down that I can share right now with you.
Thank you.
Laura, you're up next.
Hey, Louis, just from your perspective, going back to McCann for a second, how much do you think you can emulate game speed and decision making when you've only actually worked out at a position and not played there against live baseball players?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a big difference for him really. Like when the game started, definitely there's going to be some things, but I think the conversations that we've been having, the preparation that we've been having with him, like everything is for that. We think that the defense and the pitching is what's given us a chance to win some games lately, right? With some challenges in our offense. Today, that's what we're trying to upgrade, just having him play first so we can have a better offense. And at the same time, we feel comfortable that we're not going to compromise our defense with him at first. So that's where, I don't think there's going to be a big difference. I mean, this is a guy that, is a pretty good catcher, pretty good defender. And he feels pretty good about the bag, working around the bag and fielding ground balls, making throws, and also the decision making at first base. So that's where we're confident that he's going to be okay there for us tonight. And then we'll see. I mean, I can't talk about tomorrow, but tonight I think it's very important, that he plays a good first base for us, so we feel even more comfortable. We'll have another lefty tomorrow. Maybe we'll do it back to back. But let's see how tonight goes with him.
Luis, thank you very much for your time today.
Sure. Thanks, Zach. See you guys.
All right. Hello again, everybody. Thanks for staying on board, and thank you, Zach, for joining us. We'll jump right into questions, and first one will come from Steve Gelbs.
Hey, Zach. I hope all's well. With obviously the rash of injuries you guys are experiencing, how would you characterize the way the front office is operating right now? Is it kind of weather the storm and hope you just get some healthy bodies back, or are you actively looking for a relatively significant trade or two to improve the club right now?
Really, we're exploring all options. I'm pretty much on the phone all day, every day. We got to find the best solutions always. That's really the job of baseball operations as far as the major league focus goes. So, yeah, we're trying to find the best internal options, the best external options, trying to get the most out of the guys that we have. It's really all of the above, and that's the way it's always going to be. It's the challenge is obviously with the external. When you're talking to other clubs, it's the motivation, where they're at in terms of motivation and at this time of year. But yeah, we got to cover everything and explore everything we can to get the best team on the field at all times.
When you talk about the motivation at this time of year with other clubs, how would you gauge that right now? Do you feel like there are clubs out there that are relatively open to things, maybe more so than you'd expect at this time of year?
Yeah, I'd say there's teams that are open. We'll see where that goes. Most teams are always open to talking about something or at least listening, because they want to just gauge what either the current market may be, or whether there's something that's maybe surprising to them, or something that helps them learn some information for down the road. So, people are willing to always talk. It doesn't mean that there's anything that's about to happen or anything like that, but we're exploring, and there are some teams that are more open than others, for sure. This time of year, what's typical is teams kind of are still waiting and seeing where they're at. I mean, it's pretty early, so I understand that as well. So, and I'm sure other teams look at us as an opportunity, given where we're at and where we're trying to be, that it's in their interest to engage us. So, yeah, there are some teams open.
Thanks.
Justin Toscano, go ahead. Your line is open.
Hey, Zach, do you guys view the injuries, all of them, as just bad luck, or are there things on the medical side, athletic training side, physical therapy side that you might seek to improve upon?
Well, I think these injuries aren't really that different than, what I've experienced in my career, just the way things happen. But you always, no matter what, you take that opportunity to talk about, what can we learn from this? I don't see these injuries as something anyone did, anyone in the medical staff did anything wrong. That's not how I look at it. But it's always good to talk through these things. Is there anything that could have been done differently to prevent these things? How are players preparing? Why do we think maybe this happens? I think that's our job. So it's to do the due diligence, to have those conversations. But no, I don't look at this as something anyone did wrong.
And where is Carlos Carrasco at, and when might he be ramped up for good to join you guys?
So Carlos, if I'm going to put a time estimate on it, probably, looking at maybe late June, maybe early July, that type of time frame. But he's working hard. I talked to him. He was on the road with the team, so I got a chance to talk to him. He was feeling good. I think that those things come down to kind of like what we talked about before, when you start ramping up the intensity as you get closer, and you see where the guy is from there. So I put a timetable on it, but it's an estimate. All these timetables come with that caveat that they're always estimates, because there's a rehab process that happens, and you ramp up intensity as you get the guy ready for major league games. And so he's not at that highest intensity level yet. So we'll learn more when he gets there, but I know he feels good right now, and feels like the ball's coming out of his hand well. So we'll take it from there.
And just to clarify, you guys didn't learn anything new about him that set him back further since the last time we spoke to you?
No, I mean, it's still, he's dealing with, the hamstring. So nothing significantly different. But obviously, we had him on a different time frame before, so it is a little different, but nothing completely different.
Thank you.
Eddie Coleman, your line is open.
Hey, Zach, two questions. One, how do you juxtapose the type of player you're looking for right now with the fact that most of your starters, at least you hope anyway, are going to be back fairly soon, you hope?
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge, is trying to upgrade and add talent to the roster while realizing that, at some point, depending on the players, kind of where they are in their career, what their roster flexibility is like, that there could be a crunch down the road. You got to weigh that properly. We have to weigh that properly in the decision-making process. But the reality is there's plenty of opportunity now for people to play if they're performing, to get those opportunities. And we'll kind of worry about when guys come back, and that'll be a good problem to have, kind of thing. So, but yeah, it's definitely part of the conversation and part of the decision-making process.
And I think you said Carrasco was late June, early July. Would Syndergaard be in the same time frame in your estimation?
I think Noah, given he's on his rehab assignment and progressing, I'd say he's more mid-June, which has always been pretty consistently what we've been saying. So still on that time frame.
Thanks.
Tim Britton, your line's open.
Hey, Zach, with Carrasco, given that he didn't pitch, competitively in spring training, might he need a fair number of rehab starts before you feel comfortable with him in a major league game?
Yeah, I'm not going to put a number on it, but I think that's part of why I'm giving that time frame that I'm giving, is that he's going to need, that ramp up in intensity, which to me, part of that is pitching in a competitive environment and pushing it before, giving him, slotting him back into the major league rotation.
And do you guys have an idea of the severity of the hamstring strains for Conforto and McNeil beyond kind of a week-to-week scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I think those guys, they'll be out for a while. They're significant hamstring strains. I know they're working hard to get back, but if I'm putting a time frame on that, we're probably looking at late June.
Thank you.
Mike Puma, your line's open.
Zach, I just want to clarify something Louis was talking about. You have McCann at first base tonight, obviously. Was there any thought about, he talked about, wanting to get JD Davis a string of games at first base at Syracuse. Just given that you have to play McCann at first, was there any thought of bringing Davis here and just kind of letting him do it on the fly?
He's not ready to come back yet. So, we don't want to push. With any injury, we always want to take a step back and look at the big picture and make sure, we don't bring a guy back too soon and then we lose him for longer. And so he falls into that category as well, as most guys do. So, for him, kind of hoping there's a return, by the time we hit the road next. But, we're continuing to assess that, and that could change. But, that would be too soon for him to come up and play first base right now.
And also, where do things kind of stand with Seth Lugo right now?
So Seth's progressing well. He's on pace to come off the IL pretty much as soon as he can, which is, I think his first day of eligibility is the 31st. So he's probably looking about right around that time, either that day or the 1st, hopefully.
Thank you.
Tony DeComo, your line is open.
Hey, Zach, just to clarify on Carrasco, a couple weeks ago, you guys were pretty adamant that this wasn't a setback or anything like that for him. And yet the timeline you're giving is kind of the same 6 weeks that it was way back in March. So just could you maybe put in your own words what it was that changed that for him?
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably when I spoke before, the word setback to me implied something more specific that I didn't want to necessarily go, it implies almost a totally new injury type of thing, but in the sense that, so it's kind of semantics a little bit. So obviously when we're backing off, like I said back then, which we've done, that probably falls under setback in a different way. But but not one that wasn't a we knew that was a possibility anyway, and that was kind of the point I was trying to make, which I probably didn't articulate it that clearly, but I think that was really what I was trying to say, is that we knew that this was a possibility, as it is with anyone when you start ramping up intensity. So it didn't, it could go one of two ways, and it didn't go the way obviously we hoped, but we knew that that was a possibility. So that was why I was framing it that way. But yeah, it's obviously disappointing to him and to us that he couldn't go the other path.
I guess just to follow up on that, what is the confidence level then that there won't be necessarily another false start? I know there's always a risk when there's an injury, especially a soft tissue injury, but what is the confidence level that when he does ramp it up this time, he'll be good to go and you won't have to worry about this anymore?
I'd say, you always learn things kind of as you go. He's new to the organization. We're new with him, and kind of knowing, how players give feedback, because a lot of these things are reliant on player feedback. And I know Carlos cares so much about wanting to contribute. And I think you just kind of learn that you might need to take it a little easier and not push the guy, because he's just going to try and grin and bear it sometimes. So I think that's a big reason why, you want to slow things down, is because he's just so excited to contribute and be a part of this, and disappointed that he hasn't been able to be, which I really appreciate that he cares a lot. But it's up to us to make sure, we recognize that we need to take it a little easier with him.
Thank you.
Next up is Anthony McCarron.
Zach, what is the Janesh Fargus backstory? How you guys acquired him, what you liked about him, what he's brought so far since he's been up with the big club.
Yeah, I mean, he was signed here when I showed up, and I believe he was signed last year as a minor league free agent, maybe. So I don't have a lot of insight into that process when they did it, because I wasn't here. But he's been solid. I mean, I hadn't seen him play until spring training. And obviously he's got speed. He can play defense. He shows some pop in his bat. And so, he was an interesting guy. There's a lot of different things he can do. And it was an interesting guy to have as depth. So he's really, he brings a lot of energy. He's making the most of his opportunity, which is great for him. But yeah, he can help us in several different ways. So it's good to see him get an opportunity and so far make the most of it.
Thank you.
Dave Lennon, your line's open.
Hey, Zach, I know in trying to talk to other teams to maybe get some outside help in, you're looking for obviously the best fit and timing wise. Some of the timetables that you gave seem pretty far away. So I'm just curious, how concerned are you about the sustainability of kind of maybe staying afloat's a radical term, but just to continue to play winning baseball until you can try to get something done?
Yeah, obviously from the timetables I put out there are some guys that are on the verge of coming back in the next week or so. Then there's a little bit after that, and there's like multiple waves of guys coming back. So yeah, there's concern. When you build out the depth on your club, and I'm glad that we did invest some dollars in some free agent depth, and we're now relying on some of those guys to be regulars. Some of those guys are hurt as well. So now you're going to another level of depth, and there's only so many layers of depth that you can rely on. So yeah, there's definitely concern. I'd say, the fact that a lot of teams are dealing with this, including teams in our own division, has allowed us to kind of stay where we're at, which is good. But yeah, that's why I said it's, on the phone all day, every day type of thing, because we need to be exploring all the time and talking with people internally about, how can we get the most out of this guy? What's the best way to use this guy? Having those conversations. I mean, I'm proud of the way they've played lately. There's a lot of scratching and clawing, and for the most part, our pitching has kept us in games that allows us to kind of scratch out some runs and pull out some games. But yeah, it's a hard way to play every day, all these tight games, and sometimes the randomness of baseball is not going to help you in all those games. So definitely I'm aware that adding some additional talent is important, and we're going to try and do that. It's not completely in our control. It takes two parties there to match up, but it's, that the effort is definitely being put forth.
Thanks, Zach.
Jack Ramsey, your line's open.
Luis Guillorme was out on the field today taking grounders. What is his timeline, and where is he at in terms of potentially starting a rehab assignment?
Yeah, I think we're going to have a follow-up assessment with him. Maybe do some additional imaging on him just to see how the injury is progressing. The hope is that he continues to progress well as he already is, and that he's ready to do a rehab assignment sometime next week.
Next question comes from Rich Catino.
Hey, Zach, you kind of alluded to this with injuries on your team and injuries on other teams within your division in baseball. How much has that been a byproduct of the short season last year and the fact that players probably spent a lot more time ramping up this offseason than they normally would? And has that had an effect on injured players, particularly with kind of the soft tissue injuries?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen a spike in soft tissue injuries, and it's hard to know the direct cause of that. I mean, it could be, I think at this point, it's really just theoretical. It could be, we had the last year's start and stop to spring training, never really getting too deep into even spring training games, and then having a quick ramp up in July with the summer camp, only playing 60 games. You have a situation where there was more guys were training, obviously, to stay in shape and stay ready as best they could for this season. But I'm not sure we knew what to expect when you have a lot more training than actual playing at game speed and game intensity, just because you couldn't replicate that. So it's hard to know, and it's hard to know that, are there long-term effects of anything with COVID that affects people? I don't know. I mean, I think I've heard lots of theories out there. I don't think we'll have, an exact cause that we'll know, but it's obviously been a thing around the league, which is, it's been tough for everyone.
Second question. You guys have relied a lot on analytics, much more than many organizations had in the past, and defensively it's helped you. How do you think that has kind of helped the defense be better, and how much of a goal and a mindset is it for the organization?
Well, I think the mindset of the organization is to try to be the best we can be in any way possible. So it's not just analytics, but that's a part of it. That's one of the tools that we use. The opinions and experience of people in uniform and people that are talent evaluators is also part of that. I'd say specifically on the analytics side, yeah, I mean, there's obviously been a change in the amount of shifting that we do defensively. I credit that to Gary DiSarcina and Jared Faust working really closely together. He's our analyst. And they have a great, I showed up and just early on in spring training, just wondering I'm trying to learn how they do things. And I could already tell that DSAR and Jared had a good relationship, had a good dialogue going, where it's really a good combination of understanding kind of what the data may say, but also, Gary's opinion, and they kind of come up with the final recommendations together. That's truly how they do it. It's not just a formula, just a model telling you where to go. They work on it together. So, and I think it's been very effective. So that's good to see. I mean, for me coming from the outside, I haven't spent that much time even talking about it. It was something that was already happening. They're starting to happen in spring training.
Tim, back to you. Your line's open.
Usually by July, when you're approaching the trade deadline and thinking about kind of the potentially big moves you might make as a team, you have a good feel for what your team is at that point. Given the number of injuries you've got, the timeframes you're talking about, do you worry at all that, you hit the All-Star break, you don't have that much data to look at of what your team can be at that point?
No, I don't worry about that. I mean, I think that the challenge, the bigger challenge is there's a big need right now. And like I kind of referenced before, it's harder to address your needs in May or early June than it is when everyone's kind of in that mode, or there may be more teams that are ready to make their players available. And then there's the challenge of knowing, you only have so many bullets to use in trades. You only have so many trade players you're willing to trade. You only have sometimes so many dollars that you're willing to take on. I mean, there's always those limitations with every team. And so it's whether you're using those bullets now versus waiting. And, the risk of waiting, given all our injuries, is that it's, we're in a different spot and not where we want to be come the end of July.
Thanks.
Mike, your line's back open.
Zach, I think we asked you about just about all the injured guys. I think the only two that slipped through the cracks are maybe Nimmo and Alonso. Can you just fill us in on them?
So Pete, expecting him to be a relatively quick return from his IL placement. If I'm kind of handicapping it, I'd say probably, shooting for next week. But we'll see. Again, these are the kind of day-to-day injuries that are always tricky to forecast. In Brandon's case, I believe Louis talked about the nerve issue, or maybe Brandon did. I'm not sure. I know that was out there. And so that, that's an issue where, and you're talking about nerves. It's largely a how can we reduce the pain? Because nerves can create sharp pains, which is not ideal when you're hitting. So coming up with strategies that we can alleviate that, because it's just something that's probably going to need some time. And, we got to figure out where we can get to a tolerance where he can play.
Thank you.
Tim Ryder, go ahead. Your line's open.
Hey, Zach. Could you talk about the level of concern with Lindor's slow start?
Well, I think anytime a player gets off to a start like the way he has, I know the first person that's most concerned is always the player. He's, from what I can tell, he's doing everything he can to try to understand, why he's struggling. He's working with others. I've seen improvements that maybe haven't come out in the results. I thought he had some better swings even yesterday, even though the results weren't necessarily there. A lot of it with him is just kind of getting him to where his mechanics need to be. So he's working with the hitting coaches on that. So I don't have long-term concerns about it, but he's obviously been off to a start that he didn't want to have. And, I know, probably the best example with the Mets here was Carlos Beltran when he signed a large deal at the time, and he really struggled early on and then, came on very strong. I don't have long-term concerns about it.
Good. Final question from Sam Schreier.
Hey, Zach, just one more injury question for you. Wondering about Yamamoto. I know you guys said yesterday he was having a shoulder issue, and then after the game, Luis said he wasn't quite sure about it. I just wondered if you guys had any update on Yamamoto.
Yeah, he's, we got him an MRI today. We're reviewing that. And, obviously we have a roster move hopefully to make tomorrow with Jake. And so, most likely he's going to need some time on the IL. We don't have enough information for me to give a timeline on that. But yeah, that's definitely going to be something he's going to have to add to the IL list.
Zach, thank you for the time. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This concludes today's pregame Zoom. Stay tuned for a link to during the game for your postgame Zoom availabilities. Thanks again, everybody.